All right, if you're in the software world, I'm sure you've heard the whispers, right? Enterprise Java is dead. Well, we're here to tell you why that's just not true. This is a comeback story, folks, the rebirth of Enterprise Java.
So, let's just get right to it. It's the big question that's been hanging over the industry for years, with all these shiny new languages and frameworks popping up. Is there really still a place for the old heavyweight? Is Enterprise Java still relevant?
Well, here's the thing. The answer to that question, it's completely different now. So today, I need you to do one thing for me. Just forget what you thought you knew about Enterprise Java. Seriously, because this platform has been totally reborn. Okay, to really get this whole rebirth thing, we got to go back in time a little. Let's talk about Java's monolithic past. Yeah, that era when it had a reputation for being, well, heavyweight, super complex, and just slow to change.
In this quote right here, it just nails why Java got that reputation. In the early days of J2EE, developers had to write these mountains of XML files just to do simple stuff. Can you imagine that? It's like having to write a huge instruction manual for every tiny part of your application. That's the kind of complexity that made people think it was slow and only for the giant corporations.
And all of that headache was for this, the monolithic architecture. Think of it like one giant single block of code. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, if you needed to update one tiny little piece, you had to shut down and redeploy the entire thing. It was slow and honestly, pretty risky.
And this really shows the huge shift that was happening in software, right? The world was moving away from that single big box, the monolith, and breaking things down into these smaller, more manageable pieces called microservices. These are little independent services you can work on and deploy all by themselves. For Enterprise Java, this wasn't just a nice idea, it was something it had to do to survive. So, how did this massive turnaround actually happen? It all kicked off with one huge moment. The entire platform was handed over to the Eclipse Foundation. And that changed everything.
This timeline pretty much lays it all out. You can see the early J2EE days, then the rebrand to Java EE. But the real game changer, right here, 2017. Oracle basically handed the keys over to the Eclipse Foundation. That put the community in the driver's seat, and it led directly to what we now call Jakarta EE.
So why the big move? To put it simply, the community felt like things had just stalled. People were getting worried that the platform was falling behind what developers really needed for modern, fast-paced work. This transfer, it was the solution.
All right, so it's got a new home, a new mission, but what does this reborn platform actually look like? Let's dive into the new cloud-native toolkit, the one that's designed to be way lighter, way faster, and built specifically for today's cloud.
The first major change was really a shift in thinking. They moved away from this all-or-nothing approach to one based on choice. And they did this with something called profiles. So that old, bloated platform? Gone. The new idea is super simple. You just pick the specific tools, the APIs, that you actually need for your project. Nothing more, nothing less.
And the perfect example of this new way of thinking is the core profile. I mean, this is the bare minimum set of tools you need to build a lightweight microservice. It's lean, it's focused, and it's really the new foundation of Jakarta EE. But, a solid foundation is just the start. To get all the specific features you need for today's distributed cloud world, Jakarta EE didn't try to do it all alone. Nope. It teamed up with another key open source project, MicroProfile.
And here, you can see exactly how these two puzzle pieces fit together. Jakarta EE gives you that stable base. Then MicroProfile builds right on top of it, adding all those critical cloud-native goodies you need. We're talking fault tolerance, health checks, config management, the whole shebang. They're like two halves of a whole, creating a complete toolkit for the modern cloud.
Okay, so we have our shiny new toolkit. But the real question, right, does it actually work for building modern, cloud-native microservices? Let's put it to the test.
To figure out how cloud-native a platform really is, developers often use this set of best practices called the 12-factor app methodology. Think of it as the gold standard, the checklist for building awesome, scalable apps for the cloud.
And this is where the rubber meets the road. So how does our new toolkit stack up? Let's just grab a few examples. The methodology says your config needs to be separate from your code. Boom! MicroProfile config handles that. It says you need to scale out concurrency? No problem. Jakarta concurrency has got you covered. Need to treat logs as event streams? That's what MicroProfile telemetry is for. See the pattern?
For every modern challenge, there's now a specific standard solution ready to go.
So Jakarta EE totally nailed the whole modernization thing for the cloud. Awesome. But as we all know, tech never ever stands still. The platform is already looking ahead to the next massive frontier, artificial intelligence.
People are talking about the convergence of AI, large language models, and the solid foundation of Jakarta EE as the next big thing in enterprise development. And for the first time in a while, this isn't about Java playing catch-up, it's about it potentially leading the charge.
And what would that actually look like? What could you do with it? Well, we're talking about putting intelligent business logic right inside our enterprise apps, creating natural language interfaces for really complex systems, maybe even using AI to help us generate, optimize, and secure our code. The possibilities are huge.
And it all kind of leads to this final, pretty wild question. When you take this reborn, super adaptable platform and you combine it with the power of modern AI, could an AI actually write our next big enterprise application? Just thinking about that shows you how far enterprise Java has come. It's definitely something to think about, right?